would it be easier for someone who fishes for England to transition onto commercials, or someone who fishes commercials to transition into the England team?
The Fishing Gurus Podcast.
Feel like we need to start this one with like a cup slam. Punchy, topical. You ready?
You're going to slam
ready
yours?
for this? Yeah, I'm going to slam my cup. You ready? Bit louder?
Louder.
Ready?
More emphatic.
Sorry, cup. Right. Steve Ringer, very punchy, topical one this time. International fishing versus commercial big money final fishing. Something that gets talked about a lot by lots of different people with massively different opinions. What's the pinnacle for you?
The pinnacle for me is being the best. I want to be the best there is, the best there was. And I'm not saying that's achievable, but I've always wanted to be the best in everything I've done. So obviously I've been fortunate. I've won Fisho, won Park Dean, I've won Feeder King, won a lot of loads of Whiteacres festivals, a lot of events. But for me, that's UK. The pinnacle is world champion. That's world. The world. It's the word world for me. That means everything. That you are the best for that year. You are the best in the world. That nothing. Fishermania. It's not about money. That's about being the best in the world. That has to be the pinnacle. I can't see personally any argument that Fishermania champ, Golden Reel champ, may even match this champ. You don't get me wrong. Brilliant events to win, and I've been fortunate enough, obviously, to win one of those three. But once you get a taste for the world stage, then everything else. This is probably not quite right, but almost fades into insignificance.
Almost like getting a little tinkle of international fishing puts the others down a little bit once you've had it.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Alan Scotthorne or Will Raisin who said to me, look, this is going back a long time, if you ever get a taste of world fishing, everything else will... Because I was chasing Fisho at the time. Obviously, the other two hadn't sort of come about. Fisho was the big thing in the UK. And he was like, if you get a taste for international fishing, that'll be it for you. And you think... At the time, though, I just thought, what a plonker. That won't happen to me. I'm loving it. Going to Whiteacres 4 weeks a year, etc., etc. And now I'm exactly where he said I'd be.
Incredible. What do you think, in terms of reversing it a little bit or pulling it into a different line of sight of people, how do you think public perceives things? So, for example, in the UK compared to across Europe, what do you think the masses, the people who are looking up to you, want to see you doing more or have more respect for? Do you think they have more respect for that international side of fishing or more respect for that Fishermania, Golden Reel, Match This?
I think the UK is totally different. That's my honest opinion. I think in the UK, Fishermania, Match This, Golden Reel, Feeder King, Feeder Masters, they're almost considered like the majors, and people know who's won them. Whereas when you go into Europe, no one has got a clue. Like Fishermania and them. I'm not saying they don't exist because there is commercials over there, but it's not even in the ballpark.
Really?
Like world champs, European champs, anything like that in Europe that's the pinnacle. Whereas in the UK, I feel like it's because of our type of fishing. Obviously, in Europe, they fish a lot to international rules. Well, probably 90% of their fishing in a lot of countries is international rules. Whereas in England, we are chucking a hybrid feeder, chucking a method feeder, tapping in some micros, fishing a jigger, all things that have got no relation to international fishing. So I think the public find it very hard to relate to the type of fishing we do when we go abroad. It'd be the same for you. We've been talking off camera about the amount of kit that you need to go on a float world champs, for instance. Feeder obviously is like so much easier, but the amount of kit you need is like, people can't relate to that. They can't have, you just said you've got 10 waggler rods made up to go to the Europeans. Most people don't own 10 waggler rods.
Yeah. As we do this show, I'm leaving for the European Champs on Wednesday. It's Monday at the moment. It's not just 10 waggler rods. It's 2 fixed wagglers, a plumbing up rod, 2 Czech-style slider rigs, which are like a less weight down, more weight in the float. And then I've got 3 12 gram traditional sliders and a couple of 10 grammers that are a little bit lighter. And then I've threw in 5 extra rods for if there's anything crops up out there that we're not quite sure about, so I can set them up out there.
I've already forgot the first thing you said.
But that's just wagglers. I've
Yeah.
also got 15 whips set up and a load of spares, and I've not even started to think about the pole side of it, top kits, rigs, so it's ridiculous, and I've not even been there yet.
No, but that's the difference between world and UK, because if you're in the UK, you'd have 10 short kits, like fishing somewhere like Partridge, 10 short kits and your pole, and that's it. And you don't need, and if you don't need, when you go abroad, you have to take everything. You can't be in Hungary or something like that and just say, oh, I'm just going to nip back because I need a 14-foot waggler rod or I need a 14-foot feeder rod. Everything has to, you need the kitchen. And people will listen to this and go, oh, that's unrelatable. The average guy can't do that. And there is a part of me that think the average guy can't do that.
No.
It's not unless he devotes his whole life to it. You can't just flit in and out of it.
I think the thing is, for me, coming back to recognition within the UK, I know I'm not an angler, but I do a little bit of work in the coverage side of fishing. For me, it's the money. Now, I think most of us would attach some level of success to, say, winning a financial reward. Now, you know, and that with a certain point it comes with a lot of coverage, doesn't it? So we had was it Christian on the show after he won Fishermania? Christian Jones. So we had him on the show after he won Fishermania, and he that came because, you know, he won a certain level, you know, amount of cash that come with it and the title that come with it and stuff like that, and that brings the coverage with it. Whereas this is just my opinion, but I think the international side of things, because it doesn't maybe have, yes, Steve's right in what he says, you have the accolade of world champion. This might be my naivety, but that's it. And that might sound disrespectful to some, but that is it. If you know what I mean, you didn't come away with anything else than that.
No, but that is the title of best in the world.
It is, and I'm coming at it from an angle.
Yeah, no, I totally. And that's the argument. 2 arguments you've got.
Yeah,
best in the world or 50 grand richer to a degree.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think that splits a lot of people, doesn't it? When they decide which way they go. I'm basing this off of.
It does in the UK.
Yeah,
but it's like a brilliant. This is how I regard myself. I can't remember. My memory's terrible, but there's been like 12 feeder world champs, and I'd say since I started doing feeder world champs, my profile in the UK maybe it's flatlined or dropped slightly, but in Europe it's going through the roof.
Rocketed.
Yeah, rocketed. Yeah. And it's still growing.
Yeah.
So and that probably sums up the answer to your question, Toby. Is in the UK, there's less interest.
I suppose it's a little bit like the only way. I do some weird analogies, don't I? But I suppose it's a little bit like this is how I imagine it. And I again, I've been in big money finals in the UK, quite a few different ones, and I've fished on the international stage since I was 14 years old. And I feel like it's a little bit like you're a musician, right? You could probably earn some amazing money by going round smaller venues to a really keen audience who really enjoy it and earn as much money as you want, win lots and lots of wins to that audience and have a good time doing it. But until you've played main stage Glastonbury, what you don't get paid for, but it makes the hair stick up on your arms and you get a feeling that you can never get from them smaller venues. I think that's the comparison for me.
I think
personally,
that's a really good one because
that's actually a good analogy. That man,
having sat in like 7 fish show finals, you get I got nervous for fish. I get nervous for any big event, but when you pull on an England shirt and you get your bib in the morning with your number on, that's a whole new. That's a whole new level of nerves and like pressure and like a buzz that, you know, Fishermania is an amazing buzz. And I always say people get hooked on Fishermania once they've been to the final because the final is an amazing event. But if you get a taste of the world stage, I can still remember now my first world champs in Italy, when you're given that bib and you're on your way to your peg, it's
tingling,
isn't it? There's no buzz like it. You are representing your country, and you honestly feel like the whole world is on your shoulders.
The bit for me is when you say goodbye to your travelling partner in the morning and you fist pump, you give each other a hug and you're like, make it happen, mate. Good luck.
And
you sort of drive off with like teary... Match hasn't even started and you've almost got teary eyes and a tingling spine.
And that's the other thing I want to make clear, because I've always said to you, I've said it on the podcast before, it's massive respect, because you are still... it doesn't matter that it's just fishing. You're still representing England. That's still a massive accolade. So I don't want people to think I'm taking away from that. But I think for us as like an industry, I think that's where we've let ourselves down, because there's not the same level of coverage. So what you guys have just described there, which to me is an amazing moment, the masses don't know.
Only the UK masses, the whole of Europe see
But then-
the international fishing as...
So then... Is that because we have these big money finals? Are they not the same? Do they not have that in Europe? Why is there such a big difference?
I think they don't have them, do they? They don't have big money finals in Europe.
Nothing like what we have. And
the venues reflect that. They don't have the commercial venues and that we've got to run them events at the moment. Maybe it'll grow over there. I don't know.
So a question to you two: if hypothetically speaking, they had their say. I don't know, Hungary or France, some of these other countries, they had their own Fishermania. Do you think it would be different?
No, because I think we've gone too far down the commercial. And don't get me wrong, commercials have saved UK fishing. I don't care what anyone says.
I love commercial fishing.
Yeah. Without commercials, I dread to think how few people we would have fishing. But we've gone so far down the commercial route, I don't see quite how we get back. Whereas in Europe, it's just not. They've gone so far down the other route. I don't see how they get back. You know what I mean? Like, they don't do that type. They don't do the style of fishing we do. All their events are run differently, and I just can't see any change. And the other thing is, it leads to very strong international teams. So, like, why would they want to weaken their teams by diversifying their fishing?
It is interesting that. So they prioritise the international fishing. Whereas for me, again, as an outsider, it's really interesting to say I've met a few of you, but it's like, for example, the England team's not made up of you two, Andy Bennett, let's say Jamie Hughes, or Andy. I'm just picking a few names off that I know in the industry. But to me, that feels that's like having an England team, but there's no, there's no Harry Kane, or there's no. Do you know what I mean? Your best players perhaps aren't playing, and that is a weird concept.
But obviously, don't get me wrong. Like Jamie Hughes, Andy Bennett, Christian Jones, Andy May, they're all fantastic anglers.
Yeah.
But are they fantastic anglers in Europe? UK fishing and Europe there's no comparison. Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticising any of those four.
No,
because I know they could do it, but do they want to do it?
I think the thing is with international fishing is if you want to do it, so they could do it. Every one of them anglers you just named could fish internationally and could win a world championship. They could be crowned the best angler on the planet. To do it, they would have to stop doing what they're doing now, which I personally believe, my opinion is that is why the anglers that do the international fishing, whether it's feeder or float, don't do big money finals. No. One reason is because everything clashes. I think the three big money finals... I think Fishermania match this and Golden Reel. I think I'm at the European World and World Club Champs when they're on, which I would much rather be at than trying to qualify and fish them finals. Yeah. But I feel like if Andy Bennett, Jamie Hughes, Andy May, Christian, etc. There's a load of other ones as well. Fantastic commercial
just a few
anglers
that come off the top of my head.
Yeah, if they applied themselves to international fishing as much as they needed to fish, they could go, do it, and win in it. It's not because they're not good enough. And by the same token, I can guarantee, and I'd put anything I've got on the line for this, if Will Raisin, Cameron Hughes, Steve Hemingway, Steve Ringer, Lee Carey, whoever it may be, applied themselves to commercial big money final fishing, they could all win a big money final. But what they can't do, them groups of anglers that we're talking about, is weave between both.
That's why there's no one that does it anymore. People, Odd Person's had a bit of a play, but no one, you can't make it work.
No.
I always admire, having chased Fisho's quite a soul-destroying experience trying to qualify, because you have to wade through some horrendous pegs for that one chance. And I always I admire, like, let's take Jamie Hughes. I admire his determination because you sometimes read his reports in Angling Times, and he's had a horrendous weekend. But then 2 weekends later, he's through to the final, and that's. I remember from doing it myself. As soon as you get to the final, you forget the 5 horrendous matches you've had.
Yeah.
To get there, but that's a severe dedication to get to a final.
Yes.
And like, part of me thinks, looking at Jamie, he's a massive name in UK fishing. Does he want to take 2 years, maybe more, out of his life to get an England team? Well, obviously, without him sat there, you'll never know. But I don't see that as a priority for him.
No. I'd love to get Jamie and that on, and we have asked these people to come on, folks, but there's obviously some political reasons, etc.
Be a phenomenal guest.
Clash of interest. People are often saying, get Jamie on, get Andy May back on. You know, there's loads of people, Lee Kerry. We've talked about Alan Scofforn in the past. Like, I am constantly asking these people, they're all good friends of mine, to come on the show. So if we keep pestering them enough, and if you're out and about and you see them, you pester them as well. And we'll see if we can break down some boundaries and get them on. But it'd be good to hear their opinion on it as well, definitely.
I understand. Listening to, I listened to the broadcast, and they were having a similar discussion.
Winning Ways, they do a fantastic
it's a brilliant
bit of debating.
Show. Yeah, brilliant. I really enjoyed it, even as a non-angler.
We could get Rich on. He'd throw some opinions
he's brilliant.
about. Yeah, he is.
I love his, like, I could learn a lot from his off-camera input. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he is really good.
And Jamie, he made a really valid point, which, you know, for him, it's a lot of it's his livelihood. That's his income. He's correct me if I'm wrong, he's a full-time angler, and these big finals are his wages, essentially. So that alone is a, you know, I'm sure he's got a mortgage like everyone else that he's got to pay. So that is fair enough. My question that I wanted to ask you guys, who you fish more on the international side of things, logistically, if it was possible to, say, flitter between the two, so you could go and fish the Euros as you are next week, and then you could come back and say Fisher final, say you've qualified, is that something you would do?
Yes, definitely. I think if Fishermania final was on the 15th of January and it had qualifiers from October to Christmas, I would be working my nuts off to try and get into it, to win 50 grand. And
because it's a time of year when you can do it.
Yes, but at the minute, from March to October, I don't have a weekend free because of...
And the problem is, the more you do something, the better you get. So you've got people like the people we've just named who are fishing commercials 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. Just going on a commercial once every 2 weeks, you're not going to beat them.
No.
You know, I mean, you're going to have to draw exception. Even if you're like a very good international angler, you're going to have to draw very, very well to win. Equally, if they're on their 5 days a week commercials and then you take them to, where you're going in Hungary, and they have to fish slider, they ain't going to be able to do it.
No, they wouldn't even have the kit to do it.
It'll take them too long to get up to speed.
Here's a question for you. Would it be easier for someone who fishes for England to transition onto commercials, or someone who fishes commercials to transition into the England team?
It's easier to transition from England to commercials. And I'll base that on the fact, obviously I used to do commercials, then went obviously to the England feeders team, etc., fishing Walterland, doing it. Like, I love international fishing, but like I could still come back and obviously blow my own trumpet and like beat Andy Bennett with some practice on commercials. Yeah. Whereas I don't think, and Andy would probably agree, if I took him to, trying to think where we've been, like Belgium, where we were last year, and said, right, you've got 2 days practice, and then you're going to fish against me on this massive expanse of water for big roach, that he could beat me at all. He wouldn't have a chance. And that's not, I'm not being critical of Andy, but I think, and it goes back to the saying, a top angler is a top angler, whether he fishes international or commercial. But I honestly believe, my personal opinion is, it's a lot easier to go from international to commercial quicker.
I agree. I'd agree.
I think I could do it in probably 3 months.
Yes.
Whereas to come from commercial to international, unless you're prepared to spend an awful lot of money, and even then, I can't see how you do it in less than 2 years. And you'd be lucky if you got through in 2 years.
I think that the experience side of things is such a big thing as well. As in, the people you're trying to push out of an international setup every trip they go on is another big bulk of experience for them. So, and every trip that someone else doesn't go on is a bulk of experience they're missing out on. So the divide, the longer someone's in a team, the more experience they get, the harder it is for anyone else to replace them.
That's exactly. I actually read a post which made me angry. This post on Facebook the other day, and it was basically saying, wasn't on about the feeder team. It was on about the England teams in general are becoming a closed shop, and it got me angry because I was like, they're not a closed shop. But then I sat down and thought about it, and to a degree they are closed, because once you've got a team of, let's say you've got 6 anglers, once they've fished like 3 world championships, that's a tremendous amount of experience in Europe. And if they've fished 3 world championships, they'll have probably been into Europe 2 or 3 more times that year as well. So that's another load of experience. And you can't... UK fishing has got no similarities to it. Tapping in 6 pellets at Tunnel Barn in the winter, or
Fishing a jigger.
Yeah, or fishing meat on the mud line. Don't get me wrong, great fishing, brilliant, and all stuff you can learn and be brilliant at, but it's got no relation to world fishing, none at all.
I definitely, what I'd never want my opinion to come across as is that I don't think that commercial style of fishing is not skillful.
No, it's massively skillful.
I think it's so skillful. I'm so interested in it. I get to go out on features with Bennett, speak to Christian. My mate Tom's always doing commercial fishing at the minute, and there's so much to it. The same amount as there is probably to international fishing.
It's a massive skill set, but the world skills. The problem is, you can't get the world skills in England anymore.
No, it's so different.
Yes.
The two skill sets are so divided.
Literally, for feeder, you've got, no opportunity.
No.
When you've got a feeder national for one day, I suppose you could say with float, you've got the Gloucester, the Census Challenge.
Yeah.
And then a float national.
What's interesting is, though, the Census Challenge is a ridiculously popular event. Sold out, 30-odd teams, year after year after year. Maybe there's a call for more international style fishing events in the UK.
In an ideal, I'd love it.
Yeah.
And that would then open up more of a stepping stone for people to be able to throw their hat in the ring.
Yes.
Because to me, and to be fair, it's never the anglers themselves. It's never like Jamie saying, I should be in the England team, or Christian or Andy.
I think they'd have a similar opinion to us if they were to come
they
on.
know, but obviously you read all over social media, how come he's not in the England team? Well, because fishing a jigger with casters, it's an art, but where you're not doing
not
it.
applicable.
No, not even vaguely applicable. And the fishing on the continent is so different. Like the use of leams, like you go where you might be using gravel.
Bloodworm, joker, sticky mag.
The only time I get to fish bloodworm and joker in the UK now is Hallcroft pairs. Then every other match bans it.
And if you look at any international events that are on in England, Census Challenge, look at the anglers that do well in it.
Yeah, look at the individual for Census Challenge.
Cameron Hughes,
Frankie,
me.
Yeah, all international, all got a lot of international experience.
Barnsley team won.
Yeah,
probably the most experienced.
And who won the year before?
Dente.
Yeah,
James
and
Dent.
what team?
Barnsley.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's not coincidence. And people will say, "Oh, you've got the best anglers."
Who wins the Feeder Super League?
We do.
Yeah, full of international anglers.
But obviously, you've got the best. Barnsley have the best team, but the best international anglers. There's better. It's like there's better commercial teams, but not when it comes to fishing with bloodworm and joker. And until we get more bloodworm and joker matches, it makes the transition to get into an England team unless you're prepared. It's like, unless Jamie Hughes is basically prepared to say, right, this year, no fish show, no match this, no golden reel. I'm going to go to Walterland Pole in the start of the year, and then I'm going to find a couple of events in France. I'm going to go out with the England team for the week. So, unless he's prepared to do that for like 2-3 years, it's not. He's not even going to come into the manager's thinking.
But there's again, I don't hear any incentive there for him.
The incentive is though. It's, obviously, I've done both and been fortunate that I've won quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's whether you want the next. For me, it came at a perfect time, as in I wanted the next challenge.
Right. Okay.
And then it's whether in 2 years' time, Jamie might turn around and say, "Well, I've won fish show ridiculous amounts of times. I've won match this. I've won golden reel. I want a world title."
Yeah.
But because the world stage is up and running, he can't just walk in.
No.
It's like people say to me, "Oh, so and so should be," and I said, "Who are you taking out?" And there's no answer. because you can't take anyone out.
It's the level of it's the going above and beyond to show how much you want it. You can't just be placed into that arena.
No.
You can't just go, well, you're in all of a sudden. You need to cave your own road into it.
If you want to break into the team, you're going to have to be prepared to play the long game. It doesn't matter how good you are now, and that's not because it's a closed shop. The only reason it's closed is because the experience of the team is so high, and they can adapt to any venue in Europe. They've seen it all before. They're accomplished with Bloodworm and Joker, and you just can't get that in England.
I think, and the feeder team are ranked number 1 in the world
Yeah.
at the minute. The float team are ranked 3rd in the world, which I think is not a bad average across both England teams. 1st and 3rd out of every team in the world.
And that's very good considering the conversation we've just had, that a lot of UK anglers are predominantly split between, like some of the names that we've mentioned aren't even in the running. Be interesting to see, wouldn't it, if, say we did have a more European setup and everyone, would both teams be first?
Possibly.
Yeah?
Yeah, possibly.
Or,
a couple of years ago, I think the float team were ranked first for years and years. And
that is incredible.
I would say, and you probably say the same, with feeder as a nation, we've been caught up a bit.
Yes, definitely.
And I do blame that on our own UK fishing.
The float team had it though.
They did.
10 years ago, it was so easy for the float team to be ahead, but so many other continental nations now have caught up.
Yeah,
Definitely,
it's like
I've seen that.
If you look at Alan 5 times, world champ Alan Scotton,
yes,
Bob Nudd 4 times, I really struggle to see that ever being done again.
It won't be done again.
And that's no disrespect to them, but it's just the standard is ridiculous.
But I think both of them people would admit that. Bob said it on his
say,
podcast.
didn't he?
I'm sure I saw something or read something where Bob had said that can't happen. It won't happen ever again.
Yeah, he did. Interesting. Do you ever feel guilty for not fishing big finals, Steve? Are you ever like, I should be doing a bit of that? Do you ever think, I really fancy winning 50 grand?
No, because I'm not rich as such, but like 50 grand isn't, and people, it's not about the money. It was always about titles for me. It was always about ticking off titles that I wanted to win, and that's what it's still about. Money's nice. Like when I won Fish Show, it was 25 grand. 25 grand was obviously worth a lot more because with inflation, etc. But it was about winning the title, about ticking that one off. And it was the same with like winning my first Whiteacres Festival, winning the Part D Masters, winning like Walterland Masters individual. I still regard that was a float competition.
Yeah,
as one of my best ever wins. There was no money.
You ever been interested in fishing in the float international team?
Yes. But it comes down to the conversation we just having. It's a massive change. I just do pretty much feeder most of the time, a little bit of pole fishing as and when. But most of my fishing's taken up with feeder. I need to take 2 or 3 years to travel around with you boys, probably come to the Europeans, come to the Worlds, watch, take it all in, maybe make a few trips off my own back. And then only then, to me, can I justify knocking on Mark Downs, if he's still in charge's door, and saying, how about Mark? Am I not in the... You can't just do nothing and expect... And I honestly believe I can do it, but have I got the time to do it? Because I want to... Whatever I do, I won't do anything by half.
No.
So if I want to be the best, if I haven't got time to dedicate to being the best, I'd stay doing what I'm doing and try to be the best at that.
Matt, I've got a question for you, actually, if you don't mind.
Fire away, mate.
Obviously, I hear a lot about your fishing, and I know that you are, one, very accomplished, successful on the international stage, and you genuinely really enjoy it. What if the Fishermania title, the prize that come with it, was $250,000? Would that turn your head away from international fishing?
Honestly, no, mate. Honestly, no. The way I see it, if I had £250,000 in bank, I wouldn't do anything different to what I'm doing now. I don't know. I love
that's why
the
I asked
going
you, because
away.
I know that you genuinely love it for what it is. That's why I wondered, if you ramp that up, say $250,000, would that you start going, I could win that?
I don't know, mate. I'd
see if someone said to me, I'll give you $250,000, but I'm taking your individual gold away from Ireland. Well, we had double gold, individual and team. I'd keep my golds.
Yeah, that's massive respect.
I'd
keep
my gold.
Massive respect, yeah, fair.
Because like double gold, Sandra Scott said to me, I got silver the first year in Italy as an individual, and the team didn't get anything, and that's quite an awkward situation. because you sort of see you're a bit elated. It was my first world champs. I've got a silver medal, and then you look at all your teammates, and you're a bit like, oh,
Italy, that wasn't it?
yeah, they haven't got anything. And like I spoke to Sandra about it afterwards, and she said the best feeling ever, because she's had double gold in the ladies with the team and herself, is double gold. And having had that in Ireland, that is the best feeling. But if someone said my missus would kill me for this, if someone said to me, "There's your 2 gold medals from Ireland, I'm going to take them off you, and here's $250,000,000," I wouldn't give them away.
No.
I wouldn't give them away. But like my missus would be like, "Take the medals."
Steve, are those medals priceless to you then?
Yeah,
Yeah?
because it's world champs a weird one. It's everyone remembers world champions. Everyone knows who, you go into Europe and it's like you're still a world champion. It's a title that sort of sticks forever. And I suppose Fishermania does a little bit,
Yeah.
but not to the same level.
I think that the big money final, in my opinion, there's that much of it now, from sort of $5,000 to $50,000. There's a few sort of 10, 12, 20 grand events now. It has definitely become diluted a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's so many, off the top of my head, Fisho last year were Christian. Am I right in thinking?
Yep.
Match this,
Sam Brown,
Golden Rod.
Golden Reel, is it
Golden Reel.
Rod? Is it Larford? Lee, Andy Bennett sat behind him. The
Thornton.
Viking.
Lee Riley.
Yeah, Lee Riley. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like,
Yeah.
but then, who were year before?
Fisher was Bennett, obviously.
Yeah, but it's like there's a lot of it. But then there's
it's a
also
valid argument.
Golden Rod, Feeder King, Feeder.
That is the problem.
Masters.
And we're even getting that a little bit on the world stage, I'd argue.
Yeah, I think so.
Too many world champs dilutes the effect of.
Absolutely,
the
because
existing
that's the
ones.
whole point. There should be one.
Would a £1 million match change it for you, Steve?
No, because like still I wouldn't be the best in the world if I just won £1 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I suppose some people will say, "Oh, I haven't got loads of money. I live okay." You're never going to be rich in the fishing industry.
No.
It's not possible. There's not enough money in it. But I live okay. But to me, it's always driven me right from as a kid. I hate losing, and I want to be the best. So like £1 million. Yeah, I'd love to look at my bank balance and see £1 million, but I wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't change my life as such.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't give up my medals for £1 million.
No.
Matt,
I
would you-
had a moment last year, this time last year.
Yeah.
Sounds really, I can't use the word to describe it. But last year when we won the Euros in Portugal, that was the first gold that I'd won with the senior team.
Yes. Yeah.
So the first ever gold. We've won plenty of medals, but never a gold. And it was myself, Cameron Hughes and Denty in the team that year. And when we won that, all three of us were literally, sounds really faffy this, but we literally ran to meet each other as soon as we found out. And we were just having a hug crying.
Yeah.
And there's no UK commercial event that could get that sort of emotion out of me. When Mark Downs walked down the steps on the venue, he didn't say anything. He just got tears running out in his eyes, and he just put his arms out like that. And this is the most solid bloke you're ever going to meet, who will tell you that you're absolutely crap at fishing and firing balls in, and you need to, the bossiest military man in the universe in angling, the most unemotional person. And he couldn't talk, and he just walked down these steps, held his hands out, tears rolling down his face, went and get him an hug, ran to meet Cam and Denty. You can't imagine him having a roar, can you?
No,
but
I
we're
love
literally
Denty.
just
He's a
crying because
legend.
you've got an England shirt on, your England badge over your heart.
But it's everything. That is the culmination of everything you've worked for. That is the pinnacle. That's why it becomes emotional, because obviously other than world's the only one that's literally above European, and in reality, in European with fishing, there's probably only 2, maybe 3 countries missing.
Yeah.
And this is where I would like to see more done as an industry as a whole. I'd like to see more coverage on that, because I don't think there's anybody that's not watching this video of you guys talking about it right now that would actively choose to not going to watch that if for whatever reason, again hypothetically speaking, say what you just talked about there, that match was covered like it is for Fish Show. I'm not saying get Sky down or whatever, but say it was covered on that level. And because we did a podcast, didn't we? We did our vlog.
The European Champs podcast.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a 2-parter on YouTube. You can go and watch it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's had some brilliant views and comments, you know.
And it was a massive privilege for me to be able to at least just talk to you guys and try and do a bit of coverage for it. But I think if that was done on a bigger scale, do you think that would perhaps incentivize? I keep coming back to incentive, but would that make it, say, more glamorous for the wider masses to say, do you know what, actually I'm gonna go down this international route? Yeah, the money's nice, but wow, look at Matt and the team celebrating.
I think personally, I honestly think you're one way or the other. Like, I do think that,
but there has to be a reason for that.
I don't know what it is, Tobe. I think that the people who want to win the big money finals are more money-driven people. Definitely.
But I had obviously a long spell of wanting to win.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm getting bored of it was the wrong. But I just wanted a new
something else.
Yeah, and obviously Feeder came along. Tommy, I remember Tommy picking me up. Feeder World Champs is starting. Do you fancy it? And I was like, yes. You know what I mean? When do we go? Because it felt like I've always loved a new challenge, and that came at the perfect time. And as soon as you pulled that shirt on, it's that getting the bib in the morning, and it's standing outside your box at your peg. Obviously, for those that don't know, you have like a designated box where your swim is, and before the start, you're not allowed in it. And my brother always described it as the loneliest place in the world. Stood outside your box, waiting to go in early in the morning. No one's really about. The people haven't turned up, and you just left there, you and your thoughts about what's going to happen. That is what I'd do it for.
It's like being lost in space on your own, innit?
Yeah, I think it's the best way. It is the loneliest place in the world.
Yeah.
And once you go in your box and no one's allowed in, it's like massively lonely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in a good way, because all of us, it's you against obviously the fish, against our 30 other countries, and like the pressure. I love pressure. Might not show it always, but I love pressure. I love the buzz. And having been in Fish Show was amazing for me. I loved it. But that buzz, and I honestly think if it can't happen, but if you could get like Andy Bennett in an England shirt, stick him in a box, once he'd fished once, he'd be like,
I think a few of them would.
Yeah.
I think Jamie would.
Yeah, they'd be like, I need this.
Yeah.
This is my new.
It's the next high.
Yes, this is my new direction.
I agree. I fully agree. Again, having experienced big money finals and experienced international events, I'd say the same.
But I think it's been able to give. I suppose you could argue, particularly in the UK, the big money matches are more accessible.
Yes.
Anyone can enter them.
Yeah.
Whereas not anyone can enter the England team. And that's
potentially anyone can win them.
Yes, on the day.
Yeah. If you buy a ticket to enter one, you can win one.
Yes.
That's your licence. Tobe, you could go and qualify for Fish Show and win Fish Show.
As long as nobody else is fishing at the time.
No, but that's the difference, though. That is the difference. Wild cards can win them kind of events. And it does happen.
Yes.
You need 2 pegs.
Yeah, 2 good draws, and you could be 50k in the bank.
There you go.
Which is a very mad, for me, that's a mad kind of idea. But and I think, Steve, you were going to touch on it, right? Like, coming back to the England side of thing, not everybody can get into the England team.
They can't. But
I don't think that's a bad thing, because that should.
It's the England team.
That's my point. Yeah.
See, a few countries most countries have done away with it now, but a few countries used to have a qualifying system to get an England team, whereby they fish maybe 2 days, and the top 6 is the team. Those countries never did any good.
No,
because they're changing their 6 virtually every year. And some people would say to me, well, if you're one of the best 6, you'll make the top 6. But just one bad draw in 2 days, we can all draw bad, and you can't make the top 6.
Does sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Does team chemistry play a massive point? So, for example, the point that I want to make is, Matt, I come back because I'm aware of your float team. You fished that's been fairly unchanged for a while. Is that right?
It's changed quite a bit, mate. Like 1 or 2 people in and out.
Yeah.
But the group or pool of people that you pick from are generally doing that kind of fishing a lot. So, for example, there's like Denty, Cameron Hughes, Simon Willsmore, Michelle. You know, we're like,
you're all quite new,
pretty new. You know, within the last sort of 5 to 10 years coming in to fish it. But we've always done that kind of fishing. We've fished World Club Championships. We've fished international events. We're very, I'd say, probably more natural venue biased compared to commercials. But also won Whiteacres festivals and loads of other festivals and been in lots of finals. All them people have, you know. So I think that, no, it is mixed up quite a bit.
Right, okay, fair enough. So then my question was, if the changing faces, does that make a difference to, say, the team performance on the day? So you have people in there that you're perhaps not quite so...
Definitely. I think that, you could throw someone in the team who hasn't got the right attitude, dynamic, people skills. Like, all of a sudden, all this... Because you're fishing as a team, you have to bring in a whole other jacket of skills to work as a team, to talk to people, to get the best from it, to listen to a manager. None of that comes into play when you're fishing a big money final. You sit on your peg. Don't get me wrong, you've got to make sure that you're fit and healthy and you're in the right mindset and you've practiced, but you don't have a manager and you don't have to discuss tactics between a...
In Fishermania, you're going there to win.
Yes.
You haven't got to fish a nice safe line at the start. You know what I mean? Like, I've had it before in World Champs, you put it the same, whereas, like, you could risk it to win the section, or you could fish nice and steady to come third, and you take the third for the team.
Yes.
Because third becomes sixth if you risk the first.
And cost the team winning.
Yeah, and it's like I said to you off camera, my individual medal is largely a part of, if you have a good team plan, don't be wrong, you've got to implement it, and you've got to implement it very well, but... If you're in a World Champs and your team plan's terrible, or you haven't managed to get on the tactics all week, which can happen easily, particularly on the continent, you aren't getting an individual medal.
No,
because how are you going to get one? You don't know what you're doing. So, like, you know, I mean, anyone who says they don't want to be individual world champion for me is a liar, because that is an amazing title to have, the best. But if you haven't got a good team and a good team plan, you're not winning your individual title. No. The two go hand in hand.
Often you'll see the winning team of a World Championship will have one or two people on the like, individual.
When I was World Champion Ireland, Mick Viles was third.
Yes.
And I think we had 4 in the top 11 or 12, 4 of the 5, which shows you, like, brilliant team plan, executed effectively by... And sometimes the team will always come first. You know what I mean? I will stress that. I've had situations where it's like, you know, you could go for a bream for individual, but if you play safe, you can get your 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the team points. And whereas if you go for that bream and you don't get it, you're 10th. 10th's a disaster. So, and sometimes I had it in Ireland when I won, when Glenn Lawrence, who was Tommy's assistant manager at the time, come to me with 2 hours to go and said, "Team medals we're going to win. We've won. Team's in the bag. If you want to go for individual now, you can." So that scenario can happen, but when you're in a team, the team goal comes first, and then obviously maybe you'll get a chance to be world champion as part of the team goal, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. It's very, very interesting, isn't it?
It is really interesting.
Very, very interesting. Do you think? What do you think would be good to raise the profile of international fishing in the UK, Steve?
I'd love more. To be honest, I'd love assist. I think Hungary have got it nailed. I think their setup's so good.
What do they do?
Obviously, they have a lot of international matches. So if you want to be in the feeder, I'm guessing a little bit with the figures. Tamas will probably watch this. Tamas Walter, that is, who's a Hungarian legend. And so I've got it all wrong. But to get in their feeder team, I think they have like maybe 8 events. So like 2-dayers, like 3 days practice, 2-day match, and you get points for each match. And then I think the top 10 qualify for the world team, and the captain can then pick within that top 10. But over that amount of matches, the best anglers tend to be in the top 10 because you can absorb a couple of bad draws over 10 matches. But they're all to SIPS rules. So they're having like 8 weekends a year, 8 weeks of the year fishing international style matches. And I think a setup like that would be amazing. But would it get the support against... I don't know. I think we've gone too far. I feel like if we implemented that now, there'd be about 10 blokes. Fishing.
I think. What about if someone threw a world champs into the equation in England?
I think that'd be personally. That's the only way to get interest back, and I think it'd be amazingly well attended.
Who can make that happen?
Well, the Angling Trust, in theory, but we need a venue. You know, I mean, I know a lot of people say, "What about this?" But there's a lot of criteria that has to be and we don't have the infrastructure. It's like, you've probably been to venues, lovely, nice, straight venue, and they've built a road specially for the World Champs, like a proper road, not just like opened a field and we've driven through and everyone's got stuck. It's literally, they've built a tarmac to road, built paths down to the peg, cut out all the pegs, put steps in. We haven't got the budget or the money, and I honestly don't know of a venue.
No.
You know, like, in theory, it's supposed to be in a straight line, although they do, obviously.
I think that rule's very much changed.
Very loose now, but obviously it can't be literally, can't be a snake lake, for instance. Has to be a certain width, supposed to be a certain depth, but equally, it's realistically got to be a natural venue, and then it needs fish, and we haven't got. You know
What's interesting, not to disagree with you, it's got to be a natural venue. I've been to a lot of world championships, European championship, and international events recently. Walterland's the perfect example. There's loads of commercial tactics. You stick Andy Bennett or Jamie at Walterland, game over, mate. I'm telling you now, they are doing fantastically well. It's potting in corn for carp, and we went to Portugal last year. It were loose feeding maggots on a pole catching barbel, you know. But then again, the World Championships was fishing a bollo 30 metres out for spiky catfish, firing balls ground bait.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a lot of variation in there, but some of it
would, like you say, I think, obviously Szeged, which is Hungary, the rowing course there, that's probably the most commercial style venue I've been to. I've been to a few events, like South Africa's amazing. That was like ground bait and corn. And I've been to like Spain, Sticky Mag. Yeah. But even Sticky Mag, who does Sticky Mag in England?
Nobody.
No. Even that, I know it's quite simple, but there's different ways of doing it. You know what I mean? Depending on what you want to achieve.
Yes.
But you only pick that up again by going into Europe. You're not.
And the commercial silverfish scenes highlighted how good people like Bennett and Jamie are.
They can do anything.
Look at what Bennett did at Meadowlands this year, and you know, fantastic. He can do it all, definitely. Not every international event. I think people stereotypically think it's bloodworm fishing on a pole or skimmer fishing on a slider, but the variation is the thing that sets it apart.
If you look at Belgium, we went last year to a massive, just a massive reservoir. Well, it's huge. It looked like the sea. And like some of it was like Irish style. But then equally, like where I drew on the second day, you trying to catch 200 micro perch for 1.5 kilos.
On a feeder?
Yeah, on a feeder, yeah. On a single bloodworm, tiny little hook, like basically work. And that's a like, where'd you do that in England?
You don't. It's specialist.
Not being funny. If you started doing it, you'd be like, I'm not doing this. It's totally specialist. And like a lot of venues in Europe now, you might be fishing for bullheads. And that's not everyone's cup of tea. But for me, I'd pull on the England shirt to fish for a stickleback in a ditch. That's like what it is. Not every venue you go into Europe is a good venue, but as long as the best team wins, then to me it is a good. Even if it's rubbish and a kilo wins, if the best team wins, as in your team you think they sorted the tactics best, then that's still a good venue.
Where do you see it going in the future, Steve? Obviously, we've spoke about the big money final side of things in England. We've spoke about the international setup, feeder, float. Where do you see them two rather different areas of angling going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think they'll get further and further apart. That's my honest. It's not them and us because there's no bad feeling between the two. There might be from people who don't understand it, but the lads like who fish at the top in the commercial scene and the England lads, there's no clash. But I can't see any way, unless there's suddenly a mass of new events in England, I can't see any way to bring the two together. I just can't. And unless we can have I honestly think if we could have a world champs in England, ideally it needs to be like float or feed, one of the real big ones, and run on a really big scale.
A senior float or a senior feeder world championship.
The ones that get the most teams at the minute, which you're looking at sort of maybe, obviously, they have had carp ones here, but that's a different discipline to me. Get a mass attendance, and I think the public could turn out in their droves to watch it. And I think that would reignite the interest in the England teams. All of a sudden, people are, don't know, obviously, when I was a kid, all your heroes were in the England team. I'm not quite sure it's like that.
Not for young anglers.
Not anymore. No. Obviously, you deal with the pathway. I'd guess quite a lot of the kids that come through the pathway want to be Andy Bennett or Jamie Hughes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I reckon, I mean, I'll put my neck on the line, and I think it'd be difficult to name an angler under 25 now who is doing really well on the scene who's not come through the pathway.
Yeah, well, I was really interested because obviously I didn't realise Christian Jones.
Christian Jones, Jordan Holloway, Andrew Cranston, Rob Swan. Well, there's a lot of youngsters there. Jordan, Christian, Sam Collett.
Yeah.
Really good young anglers that are doing fantastically well. They all came through the.
But the interesting
pathway.
thing is, obviously the pathway set up for international. You're not teaching them how to tap pellets.
No.
And none of them have gone down the. None of them have said, right, like Christian, let's say, obviously tremendously successful on the commercial scene, one of the biggest names. But as far as I know, he's never shown an inkling.
No. Be interesting to know why.
Yeah.
Why not?
Maybe he feels, obviously, that he doesn't. And I do get this. Christian's young. Maybe he thinks I don't want to spend 3-4 years getting an England team. Maybe people are just enjoying it.
Maybe they like the money of big money finals.
Yeah, but Christian might. I don't know Christian at all. But in 10 years' time, he might be like, "Well, I've won fish. I've completed it. Now I want to do
like you did."
Yeah, but not everyone's the same, are they?
No.
I mean, I think you're different because you started in it, whereas not many people don't start in it. But I always think it's interesting that even the kids who fish in the world stage on the pathway aren't progressing necessarily.
Yeah.
Aren't just saying, right, that's it. Like Cameron's probably a bit of an exception. He's always wanted to fish, as far as I know, for England. And he's never really gone into the commercial. But people like him are...
few and far between. Yeah, I agree. Very interesting. I think that was a great little topical debate for the first one of a little bit of a punchy one. What I want to do, though, obviously, you're quite opinionated. I'm going to get another guest in next time. Don't know who it's going to be yet. Maybe throw a few names into the equation, folks. Feel free to comment. I'm going to get you to write a question down. I want it to be punchy, topical. What I can ask the next guest at the start of the next show. Something that's going to get a few people talking. Something that's a little bit edgy. Write it down. Next guest on, we'll get that hit at them at the very start. And it'd be good for people to comment below with a few different topics you'd like covering in this kind of show. Might be 20 minutes long, might be an hour long. Me and Tobes will do our best to get into the ribs of a few different people to talk about some shorter, punchy topics. You got one written down?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It'd be interesting to see what. But it depends who comes on. It depends who comes on, how easy they find it to answer.
All right.
I'll be interested to see if it's like I'm not going to. If it's a match type angler, I'll be really interested.
All right. Thanks for that, mate.
No problem.